Look me directly in the eyes while we say this. I'm Kelsey.
I'm Emily.
And this is A Trial by Podcast.
A true crime podcast.
It is a true crime. This is.
I know,
this
but
is
I was like, wait, what am I saying? I panicked.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been a true statement. This is a true crime podcast. By the way, I was telling this story. I think I texted you to this, but I thought this will be good for the banter.
Yeah.
I went over to my boyfriend's house the other day, and I'm like, hey, do you want to hear about the case that I'm researching this, for this week's episode? And he is not a true crime. He doesn't understand it. He's so confused. He wants so badly to be very supportive of this when I tell him we're doing this podcast. And I'm like, one day I'm going to quit. This is going to be my full-time job. And he's like, yeah,
he's
for sure.
All right.
He's so if you wrote down what he says on paper, he's so supportive, but you get that vibe where he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. And so I'm like, do you want to hear it? And he's like, yeah, sure. Do I want to hear the story of a horrific murder while I'm trying to relax on a weeknight after work? Yeah, go ahead. So I start telling him the story, and I'm 5 minutes into it. And by the way, I'm not telling him the way I tell you the story right now. I'm giving him the briefest overview of all time. I'm it takes me 5 minutes to tell the story. I'm almost done, and he's like, wow, this is a really long story. And I'm
but also, wait, for context, you are of the longest storyteller so you're
That's why I'll be good at, this is why the podcast is going to be successful, because this is,
you were born to tell stories, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm known amongst my friends for I give you all of the minute details.
The details of the details.
If you close your eyes, you'll feel like you were there, know?
100%, yeah.
But I wasn't doing that. I was just giving him the overview. I swear I really was. And he's like, wow, this story is so long. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, dude.
You don't even know.
I'm like, this is the shortest version possible. This is probably going to be 2 hours long on the podcast. So anyway, maybe he'll listen to this and he'll be like, wow. She gave me a brief version.
That was real
Thank you.
long.
Thanks. And then he's going to say, thank you for being brief, Kelsey. So anyway, I just finally finished the editing my draft of this episode right before Emily got here. So we're going for it.
We're full sending it.
Full send. Let's just get right into it. So today I'm going to tell you the story of the horrific kidnapping, rape, and murder of 33-year-old Sarah Everard in 2021. I feel like I just stumbled through that first sentence.
It's going to be a rough episode,
Starting off weak. So amidst the backdrop of a global pandemic, this incident not only shocked the UK, but also exposed unsettling truths about the widespread and disturbing misconduct hiding within the London Metropolitan Police Department. So I'm going to give just an overall trigger warning for this episode, just because if I had to do it every time, it would start to get really tedious and confusing. But yeah, in this episode, I'm going to talk about Sarah's murder. I'm going to talk about some other crimes that have been committed, not regarding Sarah, and there will be very, very graphic descriptions of sexual violence, because I think it's pertinent to the story and pertinent to, I guess, the ideas I'm trying to convey. So just a warning. But also, if you're listening to a true crime podcast,
you kind of have to know what to expect.
Right. Just be ready for that. So Sarah Everard, she was born in Surrey, England in 1987 to parents Jeremy and Sue Everard. After Sarah was born, the family moved to York, where she attended the Fulford School. The headmaster from the Fulford School at the time that Sarah was in school later described her as a, quote, popular and well-liked member of our community, a lovely, bright, intelligent girl who shone within the school, end quote. After graduating from the Fulford School, she moved on to St. Cuthbert's. I already know, thank God it's episode 4 and no British people are going to be listening to us, because I had to look up like the pronunciations of like 50 things, and I'm like, I'm not going to remember them all, but I'm doing my best. Okay.
That reminds me of did you ever watch Anne of Green Gables?
No.
I think the guy that like adopted her, his last name was Cuthbert.
Oh,
so that's what it reminded me.
Is that how you say it? Because that's how it's spelled. It's Cuthbert.
Is it
Cuth?
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's what it reminded me.
Interesting. Also, this reminds me, I was editing our episode from about the Eastburn family, and we were talking about North Carolina. And before I started recording, I was like, I was reading through, I always read through before Emily and I record just so it's like fresh on my mind. And I'm like, all right, Kelsey, buckle up to say Raleigh, because that's the right way to say it. Even though my entire
Really?
life, everyone here in Cleveland area says Raleigh. Okay, we say Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm like, they're gonna, because I've heard other podcasts like apologize for it. And I'm like, I already know. People, like one day when we have millions of listeners, we're gonna get lit up. And of course, even though I thought about it beforehand, I still said Raleigh the entire time. I'm listening to the edit and I'm like, oh my God. So Raleigh, okay, I take it back. I'm sorry. Anyway, Cuthbert. Okay, so after graduating from the Fulford School, she moved on to St. Cuthbert's College at Durham University, where she studied human geography. After graduating in 2008, she made the move to London, and she picked this neighborhood called Brixton, which was like hip and popular among young professionals. They kind of made it sound like it was similar to like Brooklyn in New York.
Okay.
So in London, Sarah's first job was working as a marketing account manager. And over the years, she worked for a few different marketing and PR firms. And by 2020, she was working at the director level at just 32 years old, which is, I work in marketing as well. And I'm 28 years old. And I would say I work in the entry level still. So dang, good job, Sarah. Now, in February 2021, she had actually begun a new job working at a digital media agency called the Flipside Group, which she was really, really excited about. Now, Sarah was a young, hardworking professional, and I think probably above a lot of her peers, when it comes to like her, how fast her career was growing. But she wasn't one of those people where like work was her entire life. She had, tons of friends and like hobbies and everything outside of work, which I thought was important to mention because in a lot of like the reporting about her, it's just like a young marketing executive,
It just makes it seem like she's all about her work.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like they kind of define her by her work. And she should get credit for that. She was like very successful.
Yeah.
But
that's not why. Yeah.
That's not
all of her.
Yes. So Sarah also loved to run. She loved her family and her friends. She loved her boyfriend, and she hoped to one day get married and have children. In her victim's impact statement, Sarah's mom described her this way. She said, quote, "I remember all the lovely things about her. She was caring, she was funny, she was clever, but she was good at practical things too. She was a beautiful dancer. She was a wonderful daughter. She was always there to listen, to advise, or simply to share with the minutia of the day. And she was also a strongly principled young woman who knew right from wrong and who lived by those values. She was a good person. She had purpose to her life." End quote. So just before 6 p.m. on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, Sarah left her home in Brixton to have dinner at a friend's house in Clapham, South London. She left the friend's house around 9 p.m. to set off on her 2-mile walk home, which would take the average person about 50 minutes to walk. But Sarah never made it home, of course. On her walk, she called her boyfriend Josh, and they spoke on the phone for about 14 minutes. During this call, the two had made plans to meet up the next day and hang out, but Sarah never showed up. Now, Josh, along with Sarah's friends and family, called and texted her over and over again, but she never answered. Now, according to her friends and family, this is strange for Sarah under normal circumstances, but it was especially strange for her given that London was at this time under a very strict Tier 4 coronavirus lockdown. So, just so you can kind of get an understanding of what the rules were and what life was like, I just want to go over some of the rules. So Tier 4 in the UK, that means there's no household mixing allowed aside from support bubbles and 2 people meeting in outdoor public spaces. So, like, you can't go over to someone else's household technically, but you can go meet with them outside, but just one other person. Bars and restaurants were closed except for delivery, drive-through, or takeout. Only essential stores were open. Everyone had to work from home unless their job, like, required them to work in person, you know, like machine, like laborers or like hospitals, things like that. Indoor leisure locations like gyms were completely closed. The traveling restrictions basically said that you have to stay at home. You can only travel for work, education, or other legally permitted reasons. If you have to travel, you should stay local and reduce the number of journeys you make. You cannot leave a Tier 4 area or stay overnight away from home for personal reasons. And residents in tiers 1 to 3 should not enter Tier 4 areas because Tier 4 is like, you know, worse because London's a metropolitan area and it's so dense. So basically, you know, like her friends and family were saying, okay, she should just be at home.
Yeah, like there's not really many places she could go.
Why would she not be answering calls or texts? Like, she's just at home. It's not like she went out with her friends and she's not checking her phone or something. You know what I mean? There's not much. It's not like,
there's not a whole lot of options where she could be.
Right. So they were saying this would have been unusual for her normally, but this is definitely weird. So after just a few hours of not being able to reach her, they immediately call police.
Yeah, good for them.
So the good news is that it seems like the police actually took her disappearance seriously from the get-go. Like, you hear a lot of stories where they, you know, they're like, well, it's an adult, we have to wait 24 hours. But I think part of that was because of this COVID circumstances. It was really weird to just not know. Everyone should just be at home. Yeah. So the fact that she wasn't just at home, it's like, where could she be? So the police immediately alert the media, and they put out a call for any like private footage from the night of her disappearance. So they're saying, this is where her friend's house was in Clapham, and this is, you know, she lived in Brixton, and these are the streets that we think she might have been walking that night. So if anyone has like security footage from, you know, if you own a business or you have a dash cam on your car, you have a doorbell camera, anything like that, they're asking people to turn that over to police to see if they can, you know, kind of track Sarah's route home. Yeah. Now, all in all, the police ended up collecting and going through over 1,800 hours of footage. And with this, they were able to map the majority of Sarah's walk that night. Now, this is a lot of footage, and it's really interesting as we go through the story. Like, we are going to hear so much about like CCTV and basically like security footage, public camera footage. And while I'm reading this, I was like, this is great. Like, how are they getting all of this? And so I started doing like a little bit of research on like London and CCTV. So for anyone who doesn't know, CCTV stands for closed circuit television, which basically means that it's the use of video cameras to transmit a signal to a specific place on a limited set of monitors. So like, it's a security camera on a business that the only person that can watch it is like the person watching on the office monitor or something like that. So it's not broadcast anywhere. Now, London is very interesting because it's actually one of the most highly surveilled places in the entire world when it comes to camera footage. And research by Clarion Security Systems suggests that as of 2022, there were over 940,000 CCTV cameras in London, which equates to over 1,500 cameras per square mile, or about 1 camera per 10 people that live in the city.
Damn. You're not going nowhere without them knowing.
Oh, yeah. So if you spend a day in London, you'll likely be recorded by cameras 70 times on average.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so fun fact actually about security cameras that I think it's pretty funny. You don't have to put this in if you don't want to, but I was on like a work trip a couple years ago, and I had a little bit too much to drink, and my coworker, we were walking back to our hotel rooms, and we're in like ball gowns. Like this was like a fancy night, okay? And we're walking past the CEO, my boss's boss, so like a director of the company. And we're like, oh, like, have a good night, like waving goodbye. And my coworker literally trips on her dress and face plants in front of like all of the higher ups of the company. Like, all of them. So I go up to the front desk, right? And I'm like, hey, do you guys have security cameras down there? And they're like, yeah, we do. And I'm like, by any chance, would you let me see it? Or you guys are going to have a great laugh later. And they're like, no, we can't let you do that. But I was really like,
you know, they went back and watched it. Oh,
I
and they were cracking
know.
up.
Oh, they were laughing. They're like, I really wish we could give that to you, but that we can't give you that.
That is like, so funny.
Oh, it's cracking me up. I think about it to this day.
This lady I work with, she has like a doorbell camera, and like one night, her and her husband like wake up in the middle of the night to like someone banging on their door, and they're like scared. You know,
yeah.
She comes downstairs,
as you should be,
and it's this guy. He's like in a suit, and I've seen the footage. I literally I have the video. I'm gonna show it to you after this, but. Basically, it's her neighbor who is just like blackout drunk, and he thinks it's his house. And he's
like, let me in!
He is stumbling up to her doorstep, trying to get into her house. And they have like potted plants that, you know, like in these nice, like vase, you know, ceramic like vases and stuff. And he's fucking just knocking them over, breaking them. And like he fell into a bush in her front yard and stuff.
Oh my God.
And now this guy, like, she says it was like years ago, and she's like, he literally like when we say hi to him on the street, he just like puts his head down.
He's so embarrassed. I mean, I don't blame him, dude. I'd be pretty fucking embarrassed.
I'm like, that
too.
is she's always like, yeah, he's so. That's exactly what I told her. I'm like, he was probably so embarrassed, and she's always like, why? I feel like now I know he's fun. Like, let's hang out.
Yeah, I mean, but can you imagine? Like, I feel like a lot of people actually. It's not like a super common that you're super close with your neighbors. So can you just imagine being so shit-faced drunk?
Yeah, that is really embarrassing.
And you just demolish
like
everything
in the middle of the
porch.
night, and you like scare them.
Yeah,
too. Like
and you're like pounding on their door,
out.
like, let me in your house.
Yeah,
and it's not your house.
Yeah. Anyway,
and then you have to see them every day.
Yeah,
like,
that's a hard knock life.
Suck.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so security footage.
So CCTV. Okay.
So I'm going to basically go through everything that the police ended up finding on this 1,800 hours of footage that was sent into them, and like using to piece together Sarah's walk. But keep in mind, obviously, it took them days to go through all of this. So like they didn't connect everything. It really, overall, everything was connected about 6 days after she was taken. But you know,
I was gonna say that's a lot of footage to go
I'm not going to go through the timeline of this is when they found this and what. It's too much information. So again, she left her friend's house at around 9:00. At 9:15, she was seen by CCTV walking on Bowood Road near Clapham Common, which is a park that's super close to her friend's house. It's suspected that she then cut through the southwest side of the park, as she was spotted again at 9:27 p.m. on Cavendish Road, which is just southeast of the park. So she's cutting through like the corner of the park. Then 5 minutes later at 9:32, a public bus camera spotted Sarah standing on the side of the road speaking to an unidentified man. In the footage, the man appears to be holding out his hands, like he's holding something out to show to Sarah, and she's like looking down at it. But the footage is super, super grainy. Like if you watch it, it's like you can barely, like I'm like, I couldn't even tell he was holding out his hands until I read it, and like it was pointed out to me, I guess. Now in the footage, they're standing next to a white Vauxhall Astra, which is like just a white car, like a white sedan. And it looks like they're assuming it's the man's car because it looks like it's just pulled over on the side of the road, and the hazard lights are on, and they're standing so close to the vehicle that like if it wasn't your vehicle and the hazard lights were on, you probably wouldn't stand that close to it because you know like someone's coming back or whatever. So they're assuming it's the man's car. Now, they can't read, because the footage was so grainy, they couldn't read the license plate. Now, at 9:38, so this is 6 minutes after the first bus footage that showed them next to the car, another bus passes them. And the same car is seen again, but this time, both of the front doors are wide open and the hazard lights are still on. Around the same time, a witness reported that they saw a woman who matched Sarah's description with with her hands handcuffed behind her back, getting into a white car.
What?
So the footage from the second bus camera was luckily so much clearer than the first one. Like, I'm like, why do they not have the same level of camera? But maybe it's two different bus companies. I don't know. But this one, you could read out the license plates from it. So the police immediately look up like who this car is registered to, only to find that it was a rental car. Now, luckily, they call the rental car company. It's easy to see who rented it. So it was rented from Enterprise Rent-A-Car in a city called Dover, which is about 80 miles from London, by a man named Wayne Couzens. Now, investigators had discovered all of this just within the 6 days after Sarah went missing. So they're moving quickly. And now they're moving quickly towards Couzens because they're like, she has not been seen again after this. Someone said they saw her getting into the car with her her hands in handcuffs behind her back. Now, the police were actually familiar with Couzens, and I think it's safe to say that he wasn't exactly the type of perpetrator that they had suspected initially. So just to be sure that they were looking at the right guy, they compared the footage from the rental car office to the footage of the man from the bus camera, just to see, okay, is this the same guy or did this somehow like get jumbled up with like the rental records? Not only was it the same man, but he was wearing the same clothes. So it was definitely the same guy. Now, although the investigation had appeared pretty straightforward thus far, the path ahead was about to grow considerably more complex for law enforcement due to the fact that Couzens was known to the police not because he had a record or he was a known criminal, but because he was one of their own. Not only was he an active London Metropolitan Police Officer, but he also held a prestigious position within the elite Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Unit. This branch of the London Met was responsible for the uniformed protection of government and diplomatic premises, meaning they helped to protect politicians, diplomats, and embassies. And he specifically at this time was working like security at the U.S. Embassy.
Okay.
So at this point, what they know is the last person Sarah was seen with was standing outside of a car with a London police officer, and she was handcuffed and put into a vehicle. That was a rental car, not a police car.
Yeah.
So they later learn that the day of Sarah's disappearance, which again was Wednesday, March 3rd, Couzens was relieved from a 12-hour shift at the U.S. Embassy in London around 7 a.m. Once off the clock, he called his wife and told her that he had to work another night shift that evening, so he wasn't going to make it home that night. Of course, this was a lie. After ending the call with his wife, there were a few hours in which we don't really know what he was doing. But what we do know is that around 4:30 p.m., Couzens reached Dover, which is a coastal area southeast of London, a journey that typically takes just over 2 hours from the U.S. Embassy in London. So we don't know that he came directly from the U.S. Embassy. He probably didn't. He probably did stuff in between, but it's a 2-hour drive between the U.S. Embassy in London and to Dover, where the rental car place was. So upon arrival, he parked his car, and then he proceeded to collect the rental car that he had actually booked 3 days prior on February 28th. Strikingly, he rented the vehicle under his own name, seemingly making no effort to conceal his identity, despite being aware as an officer of the presence of surveillance cameras in the rental car office. So it's not like he's wearing a hat or wearing a mask to trying to cover his face or anything.
Like fake ID, nothing.
So I don't know. I don't understand this man.
Well, he should also know about like the 900,000 freaking police or
that's what I'm saying.
TV cameras all over the place.
That's what I mean, he must have. He must have.
He's a police officer.
Like, and he's literally protecting like politicians and like protecting the embassy. Like, he knows.
He should know top tier security. If anything.
Yeah. So after picking up the car, Couzens set out on the long drive back to London, where he was seen on security footage purchasing hair ties at a Tesco shop, despite the fact that he was totally bald.
Okay.
He then drove around somewhat aimlessly for about an hour. I say somewhat because we now know that he wasn't completely aimless. He was searching for a victim. Police believe that Couzens had everything planned beforehand, from the hairbands that they believed he planned to use to prolong an erection during a sexual attack, to the murder kit he packed, containing police-grade handcuffs, a roll of adhesive carpet protector, which is like a film that like sticks to your carpet for when you're painting or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And Velcro straps.
Damn. I mean, yeah, you had the rental car booked for 3 days prior to that, so
yes, that's the point.
He was doing.
That's the point, is that because I think
very premeditated.
he didn't know Sarah, and Sarah seemed to be a victim of opportunity for him, and so I think part of his attempted defense in the beginning, when they first like arrest him, was that none of this was planned, and we'll see. He tries to say like he didn't kill Sarah, he never meant for her to get hurt, blah blah. But like the point is we can see from this that this was all planned ahead of time. Clearly. He had everything planned.
He's just like, hey, yeah, I think this weekend I'm gonna rent a car and go kidnap a girl and murder her.
Yeah, he had like it's like. He had the what, he had the when, he had the where, he had the why, but like he just didn't know who he was going to kill yet. That's kind of what it seems like. Everything was planned and all he needed was a victim. So around 9:30 p.m., Couzens and Sarah obviously both ended up on Pointers Road in Clapham, which is, you know, where we saw the footage that he had stopped Sarah. And at this point, we now know that he basically had stopped Sarah and told her that she was in breach of COVID lockdown rules and that he was going to have to take her to the police station. So he's saying he's just a plainclothes police officer, and her being out at this time or whatever was violating COVID rules.
And this that's crazy because that sounds like something out of like the 70s or like the 90s. Somebody comes up in just regular clothes and is like, hey, I'm a plainly clothed cop. Like, I just am not wearing my uniform, but you're under arrest. What?
Right. Exactly. And so what they believe is that when he was in the footage, like where he's holding something out to Sarah, they think it was his police ID. And I guess in the UK they have something called a warrant card, which is to show that they're an officer. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they think that's what he was holding out to show her. So he's showing her, hey, I'm an actual police officer, because it was real.
Yeah.
None of it was fake. And by the way, like if someone showed me like a fake badge, would I know the difference between a real badge? No. You know what I mean? Like, even if it was, but his is real. So, like, it's just, so she thinks she's, like, being arrested. So he's holding this out, showing it to her. And then he handcuffs Sarah's hands behind her back, and she complies. And the two enter the vehicle and drive off.
Well, I'm sure she's probably fucking confused because she's like, I'm literally just walking home from work.
From her friend's house. She was at her friend's house for dinner, which was a violation of the COVID rules. Based on like what I read.
She's probably already confused. Like maybe they saw me coming home from my friend's house and they caught me, and she's probably freaking out. Like, oh my God, like I'm going to jail because COVID. And
the thing is like they were like they're not like putting them in jail, but they were arresting and like fining people, like you know, giving them fines and ticketing them for violating the COVID rules. Like it wasn't, you know, it's something that like people had heard about it happening. So if it happens to you, it's not like you're like, it's not like it would set off alarm bells. Like this is wrong. Like nowadays, if they did that, they're like, oh, you're walking alone at 9:30 p.m. I don't know. Like you'd be like, oh, hell no. But during that time, it was something that happened and it was real. So of course, instead of driving her to the police station, Couzens drove the 80 miles back to Dover. So I just like, can you imagine the fear of being in the car and like realizing that you're not going to the police station and
for 2 hours
and your hands are handcuffed behind your back?
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
I can't. And it makes you wonder, like, what was he telling her? Was he still trying to lie, or was he like saying stuff to scare her, or like?
Because obviously you're sitting there 2 hours
to spend 2 hours with the man who's going to rape and murder you is just like,
and you still think that he's a cop because he showed you his badge, like, and he has handcuffs.
Well, that's like what I wonder.
In his backseat.
Is she asking him like, "You're not really a cop, are you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I am." Yeah, I am, but and like
where are we going? Why are we still driving? Where are we going? I wonder what he was.
it's just like terrifying. That the thought of like stuff like that makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
Now, after connecting all of this and realizing that Couzens was the man in the rental car, they go and arrest him at his home, which was in Deal, Kent, which is about 20 minutes from Dover, which is where he got the rental car. Sorry, there's a lot of places, and I'm trying to like explain the connection. I feel like it gets a little bit complicated. But they arrest him on Tuesday, March 9th. So again, this is only 6 days after Sarah was last seen. But it was late at night. It was almost midnight when they arrest him. So while some detectives began searching his property immediately, as well as another nearby wooded area, others began interrogating Couzens right then and there in his living room, trying to figure out where Sarah was. Now, we do have some audio from this initial interrogation, and I'm going to play it. It is, I just want to warn you, like, this was taken from an officer's body cam from when they're in the home. So it's not like good quality. It's a little bit hard to hear, and he's got like a big accent. So for us Americans, it's a little bit hard to understand. And there's this really annoying beeping noise the whole time. I don't know what it's from.
It's probably from there.
But just bear with me. So it's 3 minutes. It's about 3 minutes long. I'm going to play it, and then we'll talk about what is said in case you have a hard time understanding it.
So we're here to talk to you about Sarah. I'm going to show you a picture. Do you know Sarah?
I don't know.
Okay. Sarah went missing. I'll show you some pictures of her on the day.
Okay.
Sarah went missing on Wednesday, and her parents obviously and her family are really worried about her now. The inquiry that's been conducted so far has led us to come and speak to you about it and to see what we know about Sarah, okay? So, would you like to, do you know where Sarah is?
No.
Right, okay. Do you know anything about what happened to her?
I know that she went missing up in London somewhere, about a week ago or so, just from what I've got on the news.
Okay. Have you ever personally met her?
No, not personally, no.
Have you had any interactions with her at all?
No, why would I have personal interactions with her?
Well, it's very difficult because I can't go into a lot of the evidence because obviously that's not part of what an urgent interview is, okay? This interview is just about trying to find her. Because
Sure.
she's been missing for a while now.
I'm sat in handcuffs and with what I know her, so you must have something to say that I know her.
Well, as I said, you've been arrested on suspicion of kidnap, and we believe that you've been involved in her disappearance and taking her away from her family.
Okay.
So we are trying to find her.
Okay, so I'm just going to pause there for a second and review what they were saying. So basically, they're showing him a picture of Sarah, and they're asking, like, do you know her? Like, do you know where she is? What do you know about her? And he's saying, oh, I know she went missing in London like a week ago, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like basically just telling them, I don't know anything. I just know she's missing from the news. And the officers are like, well, we're arresting you on suspicion of her kidnapping. Like, do you know her personally? Have you ever interacted with her? He's like, no, why would I? Blah, 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 blah. So at this point, he's just trying to deny everything. And the officer's just trying to get anything out of him, just saying like her family's worried about her, and yeah.
Obviously, everybody is very worried about her. She's got, parents. She's got she's got siblings. She's got a boyfriend. There's a lot of people that care about her.
Sure.
You've seen her on the news, the number of people that are reaching out about her.
Sure.
Out there looking for her every day, and she's missing. And our primary job here is to find her. And to try and find her safe and well.
Okay.
Now, we believe that you know something about where she is, and that's why we're here, to look for her and to try and find her. And that's why we're talking to you now, is to try and get you to have a good think about it and tell us anything you can about where we might be able to find her.
Okay. Well, I am in financial and I've been lent on by, I don't know who they are. They're a group, a gang, whatever. And they told me, right, I need to go and pick up girls and give them to them. So I said, not happening.
Okay,
Oh
so
my
at this
God.
point, the police are pushing him more and more, and he's saying, okay, well, I'm in some financial shit, and I've lent on, I don't know who they are, a group, a gang, whatever, and they're telling me I need to go collect girls for them.
Oh my God, I get, and he's definitely like, you can tell like from the very beginning he knows something, because they're like, do you know who this is? No. Not like, no, why would I know who that is? Like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
Yes.
He's just sitting there waiting for their questions, and then you can tell he's like,
He's
what
very
do I need to,
nervous.
yeah, oh yeah, you can definitely tell he's like trying to figure out what he needs to say, and like he's being very careful with his words. And as soon as the guy was like, the cop that was asking him, he was like, yeah, like, you know, she has like a family and a boyfriend and a mom and dad and people who actually care about her, who are looking for her every day. And I feel like that's when he was like, oh, well, they already know that I did something to her. Like, I'm going to have to give them something. So what can I tell them? Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, this is crazy.
And it then came through that they're going to harm my family, take them away, and they'll use them instead. At that point, I had no option to try and find somebody. So I don't. There's a couple of names. I was told a place to take her. That's it. That is all I know. To this group of people.
Tell me about them. I need to find them. Tell me everything you know that I
Okay.
hope that you'll help me.
There
find.
was a white Sprinter van. They it was between sort of Len and Maidstone area that I dropped her off. I still don't know. I don't know. They just I just parked my car up, and then the van come up behind me, flashed me. They all jumped out, and then they took this girl. They said, you've done good, and I don't know whether my family's going to be alright still. But they threatened to take my family away from me. So at that point, I'm doing what I can to protect my family. That's it. So all I know is that it was a roundabout. We could drive there now. I could show you. But roughly, I don't know Lenham Maidstone area at all.
If we did it on Google, if we did it on Google Maps, like Google Earth, if we drove it, would you
Right.
be able to do it?
I drove from Ashford to Maidstone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's a roundabout that breaks up, I guess. So this is the first big roundabout that you come to. And you carry straight over to Maidstone, but instead I went round that roundabout and back up another road. And at that point, I was flashed and pulled over. You guys got out, opened my door, opened that door, pushed me out against the front of the car, took the girl, drove off. That's it. They said, we'll be in touch. So I'm here, I'm off work with stress because I'm here to protect my family. I want to be here 24/7 for my family. They come from my family. I've got nothing myself. I've got no choice.
I'll go back through the route with you in a minute, alright?
Okay, so at this point, basically what he's telling them is that, okay, this gang, like, they are basically threatening my family, and he doesn't say it in this interview, but the way I've read it, based on police's like later conversations with him, he's basically trying to say that this like gang of some sort is like a human trafficking gang. And he met them because he would go to like a brothel and pay for sex workers that was like run by this gang. And so he got into like financial issues. And this is like, by the way, this is like later they look deeply into this. He did get into like major financial issues because he was spending so much money on sex workers. And so he's saying, I got into such financial trouble. And they started to say like, hey, you have to start to bring us women to traffic or we're going to kill your family or we're going to traffic your family, because he has a wife and 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And that's what he's trying to tell them. And they're like, okay, who are these people? He's like, well, I don't know. I have some names, but like he's just very vague and he's just stumbling over, like he can't get it out because he can't fucking think of bullshit fast enough.
Right? You can definitely tell he is like, he's reaching for whatever he thinks this guy will do to leave him alone. And this guy is a cop. Like, that's what blows my mind, is that he is a fucking police officer being interrogated by another police officer in his living room.
This man is
he is like, I'm like not even working right now because I took the time off for stress. I'm so scared they're gonna hurt my family and blah blah blah. Dude, what?
Which is we'll later. I'll bring it up later. He did like the day before this. He was supposed to work and he called in sick, saying that he couldn't come in because he was under a lot of stress and didn't want to carry a gun anymore. That's what he told them.
Oh my God.
So, yeah. So now the police are asking, okay, well, how did you meet up with them? Like, how did you give Sarah to them or whatever? And he's like, well, I don't know.
Is this the only person that he's like acting like he knows that they do this? Like, so is this the only person that he's done this for?
Well, yeah. And so he's saying like, oh, well, I don't know. I went to this area that I really don't know very well, so I couldn't really tell you where. And they said around this roundabout, and then they flashed their lights at me to pull me over, and then they just pulled up and took Sarah. And I don't know.
He's like, yeah, they threw me against the car, so I didn't see them, so they took her and then they left.
Yeah,
and they told me they'd be in touch.
And now at this point, they start to ask him, okay, how do these people contact you?
But how do they contact you? How did you contact them?
I tried to take over one of their call girls and rip her off. Mm-hmm. So she's told them, and they've got me. So
how do they contact you? How is it they've been in contact with you to make these threats?
They just tell me, be here. So Hotel Burston down in Folkestone, got to be here. Okay, so I turned up. I've got no mobile number, and they have got my mobile number. They're obviously outside watching, following. I just, honestly...
How are they telling you to be there? How is it they're giving those directions?
Yeah, they'll come outside. So they'll be outside here.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, right, you're going to be in Folkestone at this time, or you're going to be in Ashford at this time. And that's it. There's no links, no telephone numbers. I'm completely on my own, but at the same time being threatened. It had Romanian plates on the van, white, like Mercedes Sprinter type van.
So this guy is so full of bullshit.
They're asking him how these people contact. He's like, well, at first he says, well, I try to fuck over one of their call girls and whatever. And the cop's just like, that's not what like, how do they contact you? He's like, I have no phone numbers. It's never through the phone. They never text me. They never call me. They're just outside. They're watching. They're just around. They're outside here. I come outside and they're here and all this stuff. And basically what he's saying is, no, there's no trace. There's no evidence of them at all, is what he's trying to tell the cops. Is they made sure there's no evidence, which is really interesting because we learn that just 5 minutes before the police knocked on his door, he factory reset his entire phone.
Oh my God.
So this leads a lot of people to believe that someone from the police tipped him off that they were coming. But there's no evidence of this, okay? So we don't have any calls or texts or whatever from someone warning him. But some people speculate, why would he factory reset? Like
5 minutes before the cops got there.
Yes.
Like,
and they've been, they're coming from London. That's, what, 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So
it just is mind-blowing to me because now he's coming up with all these like, oh, well, I think the plates on the van were Romanian and I think it was like a Mercedes type van, but he had no idea where he was or who these people were, or yeah, I think it was just a white Sprinter van. I don't know. You could just tell he's like, what else can I say to pin this on somebody else that's not me, to send them on just like wild goose chase of nobody.
Exactly. And I think it's also trying to explain, in case Sarah is found, that
these other people.
It's not me. I'm not I was forced into
He's
it.
like, you're looking for the wrong person.
I had to do it to protect my family. Blah 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 blah. And like, this guy is such a fucking idiot. He's so dumb, dude. He's so dumb.
For being a police officer.
Doesn't it freak you out?
Yeah, because why? Like, how did he even get as far as he got in?
Don't worry, because we are going to dive into decades
Please do.
of Wayne Couzens before he commits this murder, and all of the red flags that should have stopped him from becoming a police officer.
Oh, I'm sure there were many. This guy doesn't seem like he's pretty good at hiding anything.
It's shocking. It really is. So back to this, just to basically sum up, because I know I was trying to break this up a little bit because I actually first listened. The first time I heard about this case was on a podcast, Red Handed. My fucking girls, I love them. And you should, if you're listening to this, please go listen to their episode after, because they're from the UK. They live in London. And so I feel like they have better perspective on like what living in London was like at the time, and like just some of the like political intricacies that like contributed to this and were like important in this case, that they can definitely speak on a little bit more eloquently than I can.
Yeah.
But it's really good. But when I listen to theirs, like they play the whole thing, or at least most of it at once, and it's because the audio is so bad, it's like painful to listen to, like just 3 minutes with no visuals. But basically what he's alleging is that he was using sex workers that were like from this Romanian sex trafficking gang. And because he tried to fuck them over and not pay one of the girls, they're coming after him and they're saying, you have to bring us more girls or we're going to kill your family or use them we're going to sex traffic them. And he doesn't know how they contact them, like all this bullshit. So really, I don't know how you guys felt after hearing this, but it's very obvious to investigators that Couzens is completely full of shit, and this Romanian sex trafficking gang is completely made up. Now, going back to the night of the kidnapping, so Couzens and Sarah reached the Dover area just after 11:30 p.m. And at this point, he transfers Sarah from his rental car to his own car, which we know because his personal vehicle was like caught driving on CCTV at 11:43 p.m. So we know he's back in his actual like car that he owns.
But did he bring Sarah too, or like is this van just made up? Like he never.
You can't see Sarah in the car. Like you can't even see that it's Couzens driving it. But just based on like the following events of the night, yes, Sarah was in the car with him is what we think. So police believe that Sarah was likely raped between 11:53 p.m. and 12:57 a.m. During this time period, Couzens' phone pinged off cell towers in the Sieberswald area, where he was known to spend a lot of time, so he knew it well. We also now know that Sarah was strangled to death with probably a belt, and the coroner estimated that this method would have taken at least 2 full minutes of constant pressure to kill Sarah. After the murder, Couzens left Sarah's body in Hodeswood, which is basically just like a wooded area, and he actually owned a plot of this land in Hodeswood. Now at 2:34 a.m., he stopped at a gas station in South Dover where he bought 2 bottles of water, an apple juice, a Lucozade orange, which I think is like a Gatorade type of drink, and a carrying bag. At 3:21 a.m., his car passes a CCTV camera near Hodeswood again, so they think he returned to Hodeswood at this time. At 7:30 a.m., he returns to where the rental car is parked on North Military Road in Dover and swaps the cars again. Now driving the rental car, he stops at Costa Coffee in Dover, where he's seen on the security camera at 8:14 where he is seen on the security camera at 8:14 a.m. buying a hot chocolate with coconut milk and a pastry. Just chilling like a goddamn motherfucking villain. Just chilling, dude.
Hence the word
With
villain.
coconut milk. That I like something about that is just extra, like pisses me off. So
He's like, ooh, let me try the coconut milk.
like
today.
coconut milk is for us. It's for the good people. It's not
Yeah.
for you.
You don't get coconut milk.
Now at 8:30 a.m., he arrives at the Enterprise Rent-A-Car to return the rental, which he had put over 300 miles on that night. So
Yeah, he's driving all over the fucking town killing people.
yeah, that's a lot of driving he did. Now, somewhere around 9:30 a.m., he disposes of Sarah's phone in Sandwich, Kent. Yes, Sandwich is the name of the city. So in Sandwich, he throws her phone in a river. At 11:05, he stops at a BP gas station to fill up his tank and purchase a salted caramel latte and a 5.85-liter gas can for burning Sarah's body with.
What's this dude got like with his fucking fancy cappuccinos?
Dude,
Like, what the
I
fuck?
literally said this because, okay, so just minutes after this, he stops at a McDonald's for a value meal and an orange juice. And literally my next sentence is, boy's a stress eater. He's had like 15 different beverages.
Yeah.
Anyway. So
I mean, I don't want to say I can relate because this guy sounds like a piece of fucking shit. But
No,
I
had the same thought when I was reading this. I obviously I would literally never kill somebody.
couldn't relate to this man.
I literally
further.
won't. I can't even kill spiders. Like I feel bad. Like I make my dad take them outside, or like someone take them. Or if I'm like alone, I'm like I just ignore them. I'm like, oh, you're in the shower. Guess I'm not showering right now.
that's your territory.
That's your space. And
You paid the rent. All right.
yeah, that's your space, spider, and I respect that. And I'll come back and shower in 3 hours when I don't know where you are anymore, and I just will try to forget about you. So after this stop at McDonald's, he returns to the plot of land in Hodeswood where he apparently had or found an abandoned refrigerator. I don't know where this fridge came from. I just know there's like an old fridge. I don't know. Like, I don't know if he had it there, like he planned this all ahead and he had it there, or if there's like a junkyard. I don't know. I couldn't find anything about it.
You got lucky on thrift day to find a fridge that you just perfectly needed.
Yeah. So he put Sarah's body inside the fridge, poured out the gasoline that he got at the station on it, and lit the fridge on fire.
Wait, aren't fridges supposed to be isn't that why they always said if a nuclear bomb goes off to hide in a fridge?
What?
No? Is that something different?
I don't know.
I don't know. I thought fridges were supposed to be like indestructible.
I don't think so.
Like, why a fridge?
Wait, you're supposed to hide in a fridge if a bomb goes off?
I don't know. That's just always what they said. Like, oh, hide in your fridge. I don't know. I've just always seen that. Maybe it's a movie
I've
thing?
never seen that.
I don't know.
I've never seen that. We're going to have to look that up later.
I've also been watching the new Fallout show, so maybe that's like I've just got my mind on nuclear bombs.
Yeah.
Apparently, so.
Yeah, that seems like not a good headspace to live in, but I'll let you live it.
It's a good show though.
So the next day, which was Thursday, March 5th, Couzens calls the vet saying that he needs to make an appointment for his French bulldog, who he claims has separation anxiety. So I have the audio from the vet call. It's a little confusing. They redacted the voice of like the person working at the vet's office, so you just hear him talking, but there is someone on the other like end of the line.
Like it sounds like he's just talking to himself.
Yeah. Like it's because when I first heard it, I thought he was like leaving a message. I'm like, this is a really weird way to say it, but they just cut out the other person.
Okay. Respect.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could book my dog in for the to the vet so I can have a discussion about her issues, please? Yeah, no, that's fine. We think she's suffering from like separation anxiety, and we have tried absolutely everything. We've tried sort of like to give her puzzles and bits and pieces, treat puzzles and everything. We take her for walks every single day, but we've been told, I've got a camera set up as well, but we've been told reliably by our neighbours, so we know there's issues, and she just barks and howls constantly all day. But obviously, when we're there. And then when we come home, she's like so excited and worked up that she kind of wheezes and she's shaking. But where she jumps up and she's got longer claws, she like scratches the kid, she scratches us. Not all by accident, but we're just wondering. We have read online about if it gets to quite a bad degree of separation anxiety, then potential medication to try and calm her down. So that's what we want to talk to the vet about, really, and a way forward with it.
So a lot of people like point to this call and they're saying, wow, what a piece of shit. He cares so much about the dog and like so little about human life. But what I think this really shows us, what my theory on this is, and I think there's a lot of people that think this is like that he had scratches on him from Sarah, and he's trying to give an explanation for the scratches in case the police start looking into him. So they find this, why are there scratches on? Oh, it's from my dog. And then he's like, well, I did take her to the vet recently. Like I wonder if they have that. And I'm like, what? First of all, what vet is recording these phone calls? Like,
right?
I don't know. And like, how would he know that the phone call was? But either way, you know that the person's probably typing it into the computer like that.
Yeah.
Oh, they're like separation anxiety, scratching the owners, whatever. So. Yeah. Anyway, again, this is all just very, I guess, well planned on paper, but like horribly executed because this guy's a fucking idiot. Like he just
very obviously it's just
like very easy for the police to like track all of everything down. He's not. I don't know. Anyway, so that was on the afternoon of Thursday, March 5th. So like. She's taken on Wednesday. He does all this, everything to her, whatever, early in the morning. And then that afternoon, he calls the vet. The same day at 1:43 p.m., Couzens is caught on another security camera at a store called the B&Q buying two 220-liter builder's bags, which are basically large, durable bags made for hauling heavy materials like sand, stone, and debris. Okay. So I just don't understand this fucking man. I'm like, how do you not know that the store is going to have security cameras? Like, why are you not hiding your, hide your face? Anyway, no, I'm glad.
I wonder if
I'm glad he's such an idiot. I really am.
Yeah. But, like, do you think that he just did not give a fuck because he didn't think he was going to get caught? I mean, obviously, but, like, do you think that he was like, I'm a cop, they're not... Or did he have this whole... Because to me, that, like, interrogation in his living room, he had no fucking clue that he was under any suspicion at all. So he didn't even have
That's what I'm saying, is, that's a really good question. I've thought about this. I'm like, well, maybe he thinks that even if they look into him, they're never going to think it's him. He's a police officer. But then... Or he thinks... Oh, I'm going to tell this Romanian gang story. But to me, he told that story so horribly.
Yeah, just like out of his ass. Like his story
it sounded like he never, like he came up with that on the spot.
Oh, absolutely.
Like it didn't sound like it was like, this well thought out story that and I don't think it was, because he's thinking far enough ahead to like call the vet and like leave a record. Like if he knew that he was going to rely on this Romanian gang story, you would think he would like do some stuff ahead of time, like trying to give evidence of it.
I feel like another way to look at it is maybe his wife was asking about, like, maybe his wife is the reason that he called the vet, because maybe she was like, saw the scratches on him and was like, oh, well, if she's getting that bad where she's scratching you like this, then we need to take her to the vet and get her checked out.
That's a good point. That might be true.
He does not sound like the kind of guy, like, from his interview, he sounds like the biggest fucking idiot, and I don't think he would know to be like, oh, I need to call the vet and have this alibi. Like, I need to make this story.
I think you might be right, because to me, the way he sounds on the first recording when he's being interrogated by the police,
he's so scared.
Like, it sounds like he is fucking shocked that they got him. That
he's
they
like, oh my God, what do I
him.
do? Do I make up a story? Because at first he was like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Anyway, I think you might be right about that.
He just doesn't seem like the type of person that would have this whole thing figured out.
Right. Yeah. He's not doing a good...
Despite him being a fucking cop.
He's such a fucking idiot. So after buying these bags at the B&Q, he then returned to Hodes Wood and put Sarah's burned remains into the bags before sinking them in a nearby pond. But police didn't know this at the time of his arrest, of course, and it wasn't until the following evening after his arrest on March 10th that Sarah's remains were found by the search teams. She was so badly burned that she had to be identified by dental records, which is just like, there's something about these cases that are like recent, like this just happened 3 years ago, that is like, I'm like, can you just imagine like, she has 2 sisters, I believe. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine your fucking sister? They find her burned in a pond. Yeah, I just like, I can't imagine. So in the days after the murder, Couzens seemed to go about his normal routine as best as he could. So he's making vet appointments. He took the kids to their dentist appointments. And he even took his wife and kids for a nice family nature outing to Hodes Wood, where they found Sarah's body later.
Oh, my God.
Took his wife and kids there.
They always say that 9 times out of 10, the killer will go back to the place they hid the person.
Yeah. Yeah, so it did seem like he started to crack eventually. However, as I mentioned before, like, he was scheduled to work on Monday, March 8th, but he called in sick, telling his boss that he was under a lot of stress and he didn't want to carry a gun anymore. Which, by the way, if you work for the police and your officer, one of your officers calls in saying, hey, I'm going to call in sick today. I'm under a lot of stress and I don't want to carry a gun anymore. Fucking
the biggest fucking red flag.
Yeah,
biggest red flag.
Say, that's great. You're going to go on leave and we're going to get you evaluated by a therapist to see what's going on there.
That doesn't sound like a quick little nap or a good night's sleep will fix by the morning. You know?
He could have just said, if he just said, I'm under a lot of stress, I got to, like, my wife is whatever, or like, I'm having financial. But when he adds he doesn't want to carry a gun anymore, fucking red flags
they're just like,
everywhere.
Oh, okay, you just need a day off. Okay. They're just like, no regard to the fact that, okay, that's probably not a good idea. That sounds like he's going to do something if he...
Yes, if he has a gun.
If that doesn't sound like a threat, I don't know what does. If he comes to work, he's saying that I don't feel comfortable holding a gun.
Have you ever seen that there's this guy that makes videos online where, like, it'll start, like, he stitches someone else's video and they're talking about something, and then it just cuts to him running through a field with, like, the biggest fucking red flag of all time. Like, this massive flag. Like, it looks like he can barely hold it. It's so heavy, and it's just him running around in a field. Like, that's what should be happening in the brains of whoever is taking this, like, sick call from him.
I want to know who that is, because...
Yeah, I do too. I would love to. I would love to.
How do you have your job? Yeah,
so he makes that call Monday, March 8th, and on the 9th is when police came to his house to arrest him. So now, at this point, he's arrested. He's charged with the rape and murder. And on Friday, July 9th of the same year, Couzens pled guilty. So on September 30th, he was given what's called a whole life order for the rape and murder of Sarah Everard. So a whole life sentence or a whole life order is different from a normal, like, life sentence in England. So prisoners who are sentenced to life actually usually only serve about 16 and a half years on average. But a whole life sentence means that the prisoner is not subject to periodic review by the parole board, and therefore they don't have any prospect of ever being released. It's uncommon for a killer with only one victim to get a whole life order, but because people basically speculate that the judge decided to do this because he was a police officer and he caused, so he not only just like use his position in such a fucking horrible way, but we're going to see like that this caused so much like fear and panic among the public hearing that a police
could you
officer had
imagine
killed this girl.
He would do it again, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then you would give him what he got. Like, he would have gotten away with it. He would be free, you know, to do it again. And he clearly did not think that anything would come of his actions. So.
Right. Exactly. Now, according to The Independent, quote, Lord Justice Fulford told the killer that he had shown no genuine contrition for his grotesque acts, and his crimes were so exceptionally high that he should die behind bars. End quote. Boom.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. I agree. Lord Justice Fulford, go you. I agree. Die behind bars, you fucking whatever. So that is pretty much the case of Sarah Everard.
Oh my God.
And if you're feeling relieved and you're like, wow, that was so short compared to the other ones, that's because we're about 40% of the way through this episode. Now,
let's dive into this Couzens guy.
Let's dive. So, you see, you need to know that after Couzens' arrest, investigators and the media delved into his past very deeply, revealing a shocking record of predatory, diverse, and deviant sexual behavior spanning over 2 decades prior to Sarah's brutal murder.
Oh, what the fuck? Has this guy never gotten a background check for his job? He's a police officer.
This is me and you,
oh my
telepathy.
God.
Next
Same wavelength.
sentence. This revelation, which underscored the glaring failure of the London Metropolitan Police to thoroughly screen their officers, allowed someone as monstrous as Couzens to wield authority unchecked with a firearm on his hip in a country where the average officer is not allowed to be armed. So basically, like in the UK, it's not like here in the US where like as soon as you're a police officer, you get a firearm.
Yeah.
It's like certain because he was at that prestigious like level, he was in that prestigious unit, only like certain levels of officers. And like this guy was, you know, high up enough to be carrying a firearm. And
what are you doing? What fucking London Police Department? What are you doing?
That's what everyone wants to know. So in the wake of Sarah's murder, fear gripped the public, particularly women and girls, obviously. So they're already going through this tier 4 lockdown. And again, this is in March of 2021. Like lockdowns began, at least in the US, they began in March of 2020. So I know that the
We're
UK,
like a year deep.
and in the US, I don't remember what our rules were in 2021, like at that time, but I know we weren't on lockdown. I can tell you that for sure. We were not on lockdown. So the UK had really strict rules. So people are already scared and they already know, okay, people are being stopped. They're being, you know, ticketed and all of these things for violating COVID rules. So they're living in a pandemic and it was a kind of a scary time. And then on top of this, now they have to know, and now we know the police killed the people, not the police collectively, but a police officer killed someone who was just trying to comply with the rule. Like she just thought she had broken the rules, and the incident just left so many people feeling afraid and like disillusioned. Like they had no trust in the police force. These people who were supposed to be safeguarding them, and everything that they believed was like just shaken. And also at this time, you have to think that when there are such strict rules and the police are made to enforce them, the police, it's almost like they have more power than they've ever had before in your life. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because you're like looking to them to know what the rules are, and you're like, oh my God. And she was literally just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I did not realize that I was out past curfew and like it's a strict, like blah, blah, blah. And he was a police officer, so she's like, oh shit, like I'm in trouble for this, like, and then to come to find out, I feel like I wouldn't be able to trust any of the police officers when you find out how he was hired and all of his everything from his past. It's like, damn, like why would I trust any of you motherfuckers?
Exactly. So the Metropolitan Police addressed the public, attempting to portray Couzens as an isolated case, like a bad apple, if you will. So this stance, though, will later be proven very misleading. So they're basically just like, it's just one guy, you know, this
highly
guy's
doubt
a
it.
murderer and whatever, but it has nothing to do with the police. That's not obviously what they said, but that's what they're trying to imply.
Yeah.
Now, alongside this, they provided advice on how individuals could protect themselves if they were ever to be stopped by someone claiming to be a plainclothes police officer, but they suspected otherwise. They thought maybe this person's lying.
Yeah.
So they recommended several actions if one felt unsafe. They could, quote, shout to a passerby, seek refuge in a nearby house, knock on a door for assistance, flag down a bus, or if possible, dial 999, which is their 911. So what they're
So
telling
pretty
you-
much like literally anyone. Could be anyone. And they're like, yeah, make sure you run and hide and not... What?
they're basically telling you, okay, you know what? One of our officers killed an innocent woman. Just resist arrest a little bit. That's okay. We'll let you.
Yeah, literally,
we'll
they're
let
telling you to run from this person,
hey,
telling you that they're a plainclothes
And hey,
police
we
officer.
pinky promise we're not going to charge you with resisting arrest, okay?
Right.
Just trust
Oh
us. Just trust us. We won't charge you for resisting arrest. Why would we do that? Oh my God.
Not like, oh, I'm so sorry.
By the way-
let's try and make our hiring process better. Let's background check all of our employees. If you do think suspicion, maybe like call the police department
Exactly.
right off the rip. I don't know. Don't run
Well,
from them. I don't.
And some of these just seek refuge in a nearby house or knock on a door
They're
for
like,
assistance.
run from the police. That's what they're saying.
It could be 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, like afternoon, and someone in a UPS uniform driving a UPS truck is knocking on my door. I would not answer it. Ever.
Right.
Why would you? And if someone panicked, I'm sorry. Like I'm not a fucking hero. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. If a girl like ran up to my door, banging on the door, like please help me. I think someone's trying to get me. Do you think I'm not opening the door.
Yeah, to be honest, I would be like, I'm really sorry, girly, but
I'll call 911. But like,
Yeah.
my first thought would be, okay, 50% chance that this is real and this girl needs help, but 50% chance that this girl is in on it and like she's there to get me to open the door for her.
I think it's also messed up because you're also a girl. Like, if
Yeah.
like my boyfriend was home, I'd be like, hey, can we like, first of all, I would never let them into my home. I'd be like, hey, can we go like open the garage door for her or something?
Right. That's what, yeah. I mean, do something. But the point is like, this is fucking horrible fucking advice.
Yeah.
That's the point of this is
Literally.
people aren't going to answer the door like to a stranger. And like, they're telling you to resist arrest and they're saying, we're not going to arrest you or we're not going to charge you with it, whatever. So many women and girls across the nation just felt like this advice missed the mark completely. Like they totally missed the point. After all, Couzens was a police officer, someone meant to safeguard them. They were essentially being instructed on self-protection measures against individuals like Couzens whose history of predatory behavior went unchecked due to the Metropolitan Police's failure to adequately vet their officers. So they're basically saying, this is how you protect yourself from our officers that we're supposed to vet so you don't have to protect yourself from them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not giving you they're putting it on the public to like, oh, well, you're going to have to be the judge of who is going to be a real police
That's
officer.
what it feels like. Instead of telling, and I get it, they're trying to say, and I agree. It's like, you do want to inform the public. Okay, if we know here in the US, like if you're being pulled over at night and you're alone and you're like freaked out by it, you're allowed to drive to the nearest police station. And you won't get in trouble. That's not resisting arrest as long as you drive to the nearest police station. And they usually recommend like calling the police station to tell them so they can inform the officer like, hey, this person's not running away from you. They're just going to come to the police station.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that. Like, I don't think if I didn't listen to like true crime podcasts, I would know that.
Yeah.
So I get like wanting to inform the public, but for them to like just come out and say like, oh, it's just this one person. It's like, they're missing the point completely. The point
also,
was
they're
that this should have never happened, and
Right.
you need to tell us what you're going to do to make this never happen again.
Exactly. And they for them to be like, oh, well, you should make, like, these are the steps you need to take if this does happen again. They're kind of insinuating, like, oh, well, this might happen again. not like, oh, this is never going to happen again and this is what we're going to do to fix it and make sure it doesn't. Like,
right.
They're pretty much like, well, it did happen and it might happen again, so here's what you can do. Like, I don't know. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, just do better.
Do better. So amidst this heightened fear and concern, a movement ignited across the UK. Crowds gathered in London to protest violence against women and girls and to honor Sarah with vigils. The public was demanding answers regarding how someone like Couzens could have been admitted into the police force and what measures would be implemented to prevent individuals like him from ever wearing a badge again. Now, the only problem with this movement was that London was still under a Tier 4 lockdown at the time, prohibiting gatherings of more than 2 people. So on March 13th, during a vigil for Sarah, the police dispersed the entire thing, issuing tickets to numerous attendees and eventually prosecuting 6 individuals for congregating in a group larger than 2. The decision to prosecute under COVID laws was solely at the discretion of the Met Police, which diverged from the typical involvement of the Crown Prosecution Service. So essentially what this means is that while the Met was not obligated by the Crown to pursue these charges, they opted to do so regardless.
So pretty much they were like, oh, sorry, one of our officers that we didn't vet correctly killed one of your public. But you're also not allowed to have a vigil for them, and we don't have to arrest you for it, but we're going to because we're dicks.
Correct.
Oh my God, dude.
Correct. So an inquiry headed by Lady Elish Angelini was open to investigate Couzens' alleged history of predatory sexual behavior and how he was permitted to work for 3 separate police forces despite this behavior. The findings of this inquiry were finally published just 2 months ago in February of 2024 in a document containing 360 pages of findings, and I read some of them.
Some.
Not
Keyword
all.
some.
Keyword not even the
all.
majority. So, dude, we're gonna have to make this a fucking like twice a week podcast because we're an hour. And I was like, I start every episode and I'm like, I'm gonna be so quick about it.
We're gonna be quick.
I feel like we might need to pause here and start next week because we're already an hour and 20 minutes in. And I'm like, we're only halfway through it. We're only halfway through it. But I swear, I'm like, this is a cut and dry case. Like, they find out what happens quickly, and I know what. But then I start to look into all these little tangents that you find, and I'm like, this is so fucked. I have to give them every single little detail. So I think okay. I think with that being said, we're gonna stop there. It's gonna be a 2-parter. I like 2-parters. Like when I listen,
too. I get excited. I'm like, oof, it's gonna be a good one.
Whenever I hear it on a podcast, they're always like apologizing. They're like, I'm sorry, guys. So I think other people maybe don't like it. So sorry, Mom and Dad, our 2 favorite and only listeners. You're gonna have to wait till next week to hear the rest. But next week we will dive very deep into neck deep into the history of Wayne Couzens, like all the red flags and a lot of other concerning things going on inside the London Metropolitan Police Department.
Oh, I wouldn't be fucking surprised.
Couzens is not just one bad apple. I think I wrote somewhere later on, I put a field of rotting apples.
Ooh, a bad tree. We got a rotten tree. Ooh.
So we'll leave off there. And yeah, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Join the Facebook group. Everything is at A Trial by Podcast. Probably still don't have a website, but but if we do, just Google it, find out. It'll be a trialbypodcast.com. But yeah, we'll see. And we'll pick it up from there next week. So thanks for listening, Mom and Dad. I really love you guys. Emily, anything to say to Bill and Connie?
Thank you for being our sole supporters on this journey.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
We do this for you too. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.